Alright, so Karma, the reboot of Endurance. I'm actually really surprised at how much I am enjoying that because oddly it seemed to be a little bit more mature than Endurance, even though the average age of contestants is about the same, and when you realize that this series is typically 40-minute episodes and Endurance is 20-minute episodes, it's actually about the same amount of footage. There's just one challenge per episode. That's the main difference between this show, besides the last challenge, which I'll get to later. Albeit it could just be because there was a little less backstabbing of people, because even though these kids seem to be more aware of reality show gameplay, because Jack mentions, or at least some guy mentioned they watched a lot of Survivor, and I'm sure at least a couple of these people were somewhat aware of Endurance, albeit they would have been insanely young when the show was on, so maybe they never actually got to watch it when it aired, but you know, it definitely had a next generation feel to it, so that was interesting. And I really was pleased that Michelle, as the host here, did a really good job, both in being professional with all the kids, but then asking, like the right questions that were already in her mind, changing the questions based on the situation, also trying to be neutral and supportive of everybody, and throwing things in on the fly. Like when Huck was trying to do the poker thing, she actually makes a joke about it. That was good, and I especially love that unlike JD, even though he is executive producer of this show, she never asked anything in a way that indicated that she knew exactly what was going on. Thank you! Was that so hard, JD? Ugh, man. So yeah, she did an excellent job as host, and I actually knew nothing about her before this show, unlike it seems a lot of other people. So it was nice to go into her with a fresh slate, that kind of a thing. The challenges that they had in here, it's a little disappointing that they were slightly more on the physical leaning, but if you look at endurance, that's the case for a lot of them as well. Oh, sure, a decent amount of them did have mental elements, like putting in all the pictures in the first season to form that triangle with a window in the middle, the final free immunity challenge in the second season. There's other challenges like that, yeah. So it's a little disappointing that there wasn't too much of a mental element, but the challenges that they came up with there, they were creative. I'll give them that. And I do really like this idea for the final game because, unlike Endurance and Moolah Beach, where it is pretty much just random chance, this had the teams, directly competing against each other, and they, actually had to work towards getting the solutions. Sure, the end solution ended up being kind of obvious, and if this show gets renewed for future seasons, which I doubt, they're really going to have to create a new system for this final game, because if the entire show keeps getting called Karma, then it's going to be ridiculously tough to find 5-word phrases that can incorporate the theme, because you definitely do not want to be using the same system over and over again, and then you're also going to want to change the contraption too in order to make it more difficult, because something like that you just don't want to repeat it, you know. Now it could be that you couldn't have something like, well, they run through an area to get like a key and then unlock it, but given how all the elimination action is supposed to take place at the cave, thank God I didn't say temple, you want to keep as much action there as possible, you know? Right. So you would have to change the theme of every season, and I really don't think that this show is really capable of doing that, especially since I highly doubt that it's going to be renewed because, granted, it seemed like that they made this before the pandemic started, but then within a couple weeks of the season finishing, it was taken off HBO Max, though thankfully some people were able to rip the show off of HBO Max and put it on the pirate sites, which is how I was able to access it. So that tells you something, and there's no like official announcement. I highly doubt that even Michelle or JD know, and then if they do know, probably they aren't able to tell us. Right. So I highly doubt that this show's getting a second season, which is a bummer because it did have potential, but they are definitely going to have to step it up. And then, of course, any reality show that involves teenagers is going to get a lot of scrutiny because, heck, even in having the younger contestants on American Idol and America's Got Talent, that already gets a lot of criticism as it is, so, right. So there's that. So I think that pretty much takes care of all the general aspects of this without doing specific spoilers, so let's jump into the specific spoilers. How did I feel about this cast? It was tricky to figure out who was who for a little bit. I didn't really get to know that many people here by name, honestly, and several of them were just because it was easier to say the names. Huck, Luke, Ariana, but that's because of Ariana Grande. I think there was an Andrea there where it's pronounced Andrea, but that's because there's an Andrea on Survivor that I like. Jack, because obviously that's easy. Right. But I don't really have that many complaints, because yes, there were people that did behave negatively in this game. The guy that chose all the partners and ended up on the green team getting the first boot. Guy on the orange team kind of making things bad for himself, even though when his team in yellow were going up to the temple, everyone actually wanted his team to stay, which was interesting. And then there's Luke from the blue team that really did seem to like shoot himself in the foot, but a lot of that I think just has to do with the game, you know? It's a high pressure environment, they're away from home, and yes, there's alliances at the beginning, but that's either because there's an easy target or it's just natural for people to come together. Eventually, those ties are going to have to wear down, even though pink, red, and purple did actually seem to have a decent agreement going on there. Sure, purple started doing stuff to, make themselves seem more strategic or sympathetic to other teams, which did seem to pay off, because if I recall correctly, both gray and blue gave them a clue during the last mission, and then I know that blue did give them their medallions, but I think they had already been given gray's medallions, so second generation, right. But even when that was happening, I'm like, because you guys are weaker in the challenges, it really wouldn't surprise me if you're able to get to the final three, and this was when there was 5 teams left. It wouldn't surprise me if you make final three without winning the challenges or being sent to the cave, and that's exactly what happened. So some would argue that they got a free ride, but getting to the final three without anything bad or ever really being at risk happening isn't anything new. Moolah Beach, one team was always first or second, all the way to including the top three. Endurance 1 and 5, enough said, and it happened other times in the other seasons, you know. And I know what you're thinking. Spoiler, hey, I didn't tell you what teams, and if you haven't seen those seasons and have a means of watching them, you're probably going to forget what I've said by the time you're there. Trust me on this. So, them getting to that point is nothing new. And they're completely forgetting that Pink also got to the final three without being sent to the cave. They just won a couple of challenges along the way. Huh? Right. So, there was that. I'll admit, I was a little bit sorry to see, like, Yellow go, because I didn't totally get why they were ultimately considered a threat in that situation, but they definitely, you know, gave it a try. And it's so interesting how they had, like, the different, situations when they were in the cave, because the first time it was 6-1 and they win because they have so many. Then the next time is the exact opposite situation, and yet they get the coin on the first try. So it goes to show what it really is random chance when you go up there. Sure, Jack is trying to argue that there is some element of strategy to it, but you can only really do that if you're good at observing the other team, which, was it Skyla was? When Purple and Pink were up there, or 2, a team hasn't been up there enough that you can kind of guess their strategy. Yeah, that's really all I can say about that. That's... then Gray, it's kind of interesting how they were a good team and at the same time not a good team, because they had some strength, but it seemed like they had some trouble with the social relations along the way. It's kind of complicated. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the idea of bringing Jack back. Well, here's the thing. It's really to overlook a really simple remark that Jack made right after he announces that he's back, because after he says that he's back, it cuts to him in a confessional situation where he says, last 24 hours have been pretty weird for me because on my way home, my flight broke down, and then I get a call saying we might have a place for you in this game. So that tells me that actually the original plan was not to bring him back. Skyla would have been DQ'd from the competition. It just so happened that he happened to be close enough to the game that they brought him back, because according to Michelle, when they were in the final 3 or final 2, they'd actually been up there for like 3 weeks. So odds are it wasn't until day, I want to say 5 or something, that they did the first immunity game. So yeah, bringing him back was fair, but it's clear in hindsight that that was just dumb luck that he really ended up getting back on the show, because when they invited everyone back at the end, whatever girl didn't get through the right to stay challenge, she wasn't there. So, right. And, yeah, there were moments where they were dysfunctional as a team and Jack seemed to be cocky, but as I said, Luke, Huck, and a couple of the other guys, they had their own moments where they were like that. And if I was in their situation, would I seem that likable? I really don't think so. And when it came down to the final 3 teams, I actually was a little bit more for Purple, only because I felt like they had a tad bit more of a story to them. And then the edit in the last episode of the show did really, really try to make them seem like the better team. that kind of a thing. So I was glad that they won, but I would have been reasonably okay with any team winning, provided they got at least a decent edit. So, again, nice show. I doubt that they're going to renew it, but if they do, of course I'd try and watch it. And yeah, see you next time.